what people like about your script is just as important as what people don't like about your script. And I hate it when people say like every first draft is like terrible through and through. I don't agree with that at all. I mean, yeah, like
Yeah.
every first draft needs to be improved, but um, I think if you're showing your script to someone and it's a first draft and they have nothing good to say about it, then I would find someone else to give you notes on a script because
Mhm.
then they're just nitpicking things in your script, and you want to find someone to give you notes who sees what you're trying to do. And I think that the
Yes.
only way you can know for sure if someone kind of sees your vision for it is by hearing them say what they like about your script. And if it's the same things that you like about the script, then I would hold on to that person and get as many notes from them as you possibly can, because that's someone who wants to um, see your script succeed.
Welcome again to Screenwriters Talk Screenwriting. Today's guest is my friend David Wingert, and this episode is all about script coverage. David has done coverage for competitions and companies like Final Draft, Coverfly, Slamdance, Paramount, Austin Film Festival, and more. He's also the director and producer of Love at First Bite, a new rom-com I wrote and produced with our mutual friends. Keep an eye out for Love at First Bite, streaming later this year. With so many major script coverage services closing down, David and I talk about why scriptreads.com is a great alternative for writers if you're looking for script coverage.
Screenwriters talk screenwriting. Screenwriters talk screenwriting. Screenwriters talk screenwriting. Screenwriters talk scriptreads.com.
Welcome again to Screenwriters Talk Screenwriting. Today we have David Wingert. He's been on the podcast before. Welcome back, David. And today,
Hello, thanks for having me.
yeah, of course, man, of course. And today we're going to talk about script coverage because there's a bunch of companies closing, or they've already closed, I think. And me and David kind of pretty much started our own with a couple other friends. So if you're looking to just find script coverage and you're the companies you usually go to aren't there anymore, come to scriptreads.com. And scriptreads.com is script coverage for screenwriters, by people who've actually produced movies. Everyone who is at Scriptreads has produced movies. We're all working screenwriters. We've all written a ton. So if you want, instead of just sending it to someone who doesn't have a lot of experience, we have a ton of experience. So scriptreads.com. Yeah.
And we're done with the podcast. This is it.
Yeah, exactly. That was
See you
just a
next time,
promo.
everyone.
Yep. Um, but all right, cool. Let's get, yeah. Can't even talk right now. All right, so yeah, we got some questions. We'll talk about script coverage. But first, the first question I guess we'll go over is what is script coverage? For anyone who doesn't know, what is script coverage? David, I'll let you answer it and then I'll answer it, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess the most basic version of script coverage is somebody sending someone else their script to get honest feedback for it, whether that's for their own improvement of the script or they're trying to sell it to someone and they're doing coverage to kind of gauge how quote unquote good it is, or like if it's what they're looking for. So it's basically just evaluating the script. It's basically like a book essay, but for a screenplay.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the way I kind of think about it is a book report. And sometimes you do coverage. We've done coverage for different places. We'll talk about that next. Um, but sometimes you do coverage for production companies when a script comes around. I've been an intern at several companies where I read the script first and then let them know like, hey, you should make this or not make this. Sometimes you do script coverage for contests. But yeah, it's pretty much reading the whole script and then giving notes. And if the writer gets those notes back, hopefully it can help them improve the script. So yeah, that's pretty much script coverage. And we offer 2 to 3 pages at scriptreads.com. What if I just promote it the whole time? I just keep saying scriptreads.com after every
And I
question.
swear, guys, we're not trying to just promote script reads. We're here to actually talk about script coverage.
Yeah. Yeah. But also scriptreads.com.
But also, yeah, check it out.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, let's talk about where, David, you have a ton of experience doing coverage. So where have you done coverage for before?
So yeah, I've read for a lot of different places. I've read for Final Drafts, Slam Dance, Austin Film Festival, Coverfly. Um, before I moved out here officially, when I was still in school, I interned at a lot of companies. I did coverage for Paramount, Hyde Park
Nice.
Entertainment, Safe House Pictures. I read coverage for Jordan for a while
Yeah.
at his company. This is
Yep.
back, uh, man, at least like 8 or 9 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've read for a lot of contests and a couple of companies like Paramount. But yeah, so it's been all across the board for contests as well as for companies looking to buy scripts. I've seen both sides of it.
Yeah. And you've been doing it for like 10 years, I think,
Yeah, I
right?
think coming up on 10 years.
Nice.
Yeah, about half of that was done just part time as just kind of like a side hustle, and then the second half was more full time and just taking it freelance on my own.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because a lot of these companies, they don't have a lot, especially a lot of contests, they don't have readers like on a weekly or monthly budget. They hire freelance readers to come read for them. So you often get a lot of freelance readers who will read for like multiple contests at the same time in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I know like you did coverage when I pretty much started a management company after I sold the script without a manager and agent. I started trying to hustle my own scripts as a manager and help other people out. So that's all kind of how we met
Mhm.
when I had that company after I sold my first screenplay. But I've done coverage. I did coverage for that company, but I've also done coverage for Mar Vista Entertainment, 20th Century Fox, Untitled Entertainment. That's a management company in Beverly Hills. I really learned. I worked for the lit department directly at Untitled Entertainment, and pretty much I was the intern for the top literary manager there, and then her assistant, which was also a manager there. And then I was the assistant after that. But pretty much to kind of give you an idea, like how it worked back then, is I would work Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'd work full days, and I would just walk in, and there'd be a giant pile of scripts, and we'd walk in, and just every intern would grab a script, and then do at least one or two pieces of coverage every day we were there, and evaluate it to see if like this is something that would want to be produced by Untitled Entertainment. And I've done it for also sellingyourscreenplay.com, which was kind of a mutual a friend of ours as well, owns that website. Um, and I've done it at a bunch of other places too, but I know my most experience is probably Untitled and sellingyourscreenplay.com. So,
Mhm.
and Mar Vista too. I did it for Mar Vista for a while when I worked there. So awesome. Okay, so let's keep going. Um, scriptreads.com. How does doing coverage? I'm gonna try to maybe I'll just do it until I feel the joke is dead. Okay, how does doing coverage as a reader shape you as a screenwriter?
Man, oh my word, that's I think for me personally, the number one thing is when you read lots of scripts, you start to learn what a lot of the trends are that people are writing about, and I
Mhm.
think you also notice a lot of cliches that people do, which I think if you're just kind of writing like in a bubble and you're not reading other people's stuff and it's just you and your own writing all the time, you don't unless you like see a lot of cliches in movies and stuff, you don't really know um what's been overdone.
Yeah,
And I think once you have read for a lot of contests and a lot of companies, you start to see a lot of tendencies um repeated so often that you'll just like by the time you're like sit down to do your own writing, you'll find yourself like wanting to write something and then all of a sudden in the back of your head you're like, "Oh, I've read this exact same cliche like 100 times this past month," and you just get like physically sick thinking about that, like a certain line someone says or like a certain thing that characters do that you just read over and over again to the point where it just repulses you. Um, and I think that's kind of what I've learned the most from reading scripts isn't necessarily what to do, but what not to do. I think there's way more things that you should avoid than what you should do. That makes a script good, in my opinion.
yeah, yeah. I definitely think it makes your writing so much better because you don't make the mistakes that you've seen in other scripts. Um, I know, like one of them is, for example, like I remember reading a ton of scripts that just had way too much action, and it would just take. Ideally, you want 1 minute of a script to equal 1 minute on screen. So when you're reading it, if you have a 100-page script, it should take 100 minutes. If it's taken 5 hours, that is a problem. And I think a lot of it is because there's way too much action. People have to be less wordy and have more brevity with their words. And I also think rhythm is a big part of it too. I think when you're reading it, you can kind of feel the rhythm to a script, and you become better as a writer working rhythm into your script and knowing how long scenes should be and how they should feel like. So
Mhm.
yeah, I definitely think doing coverage makes you a better writer.
Yeah, I think what you're saying, just making things as condensed as possible is
Mhm.
so important because oftentimes when I'm reading a script, I can kind of put myself on autopilot where I'm like, oh, like you read like two sentences of like a scene and you're like, okay, I know exactly where the scene's going. And then you kind of like just gloss over the rest of the scene. You're like, yep, it's hitting all the things that I know is going to happen. So, and that isn't to say everything you need to write needs to be like subverting your expectations every step of the way, but I think it's a problem if it's a problem when your writing gets so predictable that people reading it don't even have to pay that close of attention to it. So I think that's something a rule that I know you and I know very well, but maybe people listening to this don't know is um, get into a scene late and leave early, which is basically just code for make a
Mhm.
scene as short as possible. And there shouldn't be any like the scene should start exactly when the conflict starts. And as soon as the conflict is over, get out of the scene as quickly as possible. Because the worst thing you can do is just bore your audience by overstaying your welcome, whether it's a scene or a whole movie in general.
Yeah. Yeah. Characters do not need to say hello and they do not need to say
Mhm,
goodbye.
mhm.
Um, characters,
Yeah, I've had scripts where
yeah.
I have I read the whole script, but if I was reading it for a contest, if there's more than 3 scenes in the first act where characters are like half the scene is characters saying hello and goodbye, I already know that script isn't making it to the next round.
Yeah.
So even just like a little thing like that, again, like, but again, if you haven't read a lot of scripts, you might not realize that that's an issue. Um, so that's just like one little thing that really irks me. Uh,
Yeah.
Scriptreads.com.
Yeah, yeah, script reads like awesome.
Keep tally of how many times we say it.
Yeah, yeah. It's been like six at least now,
Yeah.
maybe seven. All right, awesome. All right, let's explain pass, consider, recommend. Do you want me to do this? Do you want to take this?
I can go with this. I mean,
All right.
because yeah, I know this I know this pattern in my sleep because just every contest has this, and it's basically it. I mean, for me, it's like 70, 70 to 75% of the scripts you read are going to be pass. And it's just kind
Oh
of
wow.
exactly, it's just like a yes, no, maybe system, basically. Like I'd say 70% of them are pass, maybe 5 to 10% um, are recommends, and then the rest are consider. But for me, recommends are basically you saying to whoever, whatever company is that you're reading the script for, it's you telling them that you would personally vouch for this script, like you would put your
Mhm.
reputation to this script. Um, Whereas I think considers are more, they're good. They have some flaws, but they may not necessarily make it to the next round, or they might not necessarily be worth um, investing your money in right now. But they are worth looking at. A lot of for some contests I've read for, a consider means the script isn't necessarily good, but the writer shows a lot of potential. So maybe keep an eye out for that writer, but the script
Mhm.
just isn't quite there yet. So I think a lot of writers submitting to contests when they get a consider, they take that as a bad sign, but I would take that as a very good sign because there are way more people who are just getting a straight pass and not advancing to the next round at all. But if you have a consider, that means there is something there and there's merit to your writing, even if it's not necessarily winning this contest for you. It is still something very worth acknowledging.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Your numbers were actually a little bit nicer than the numbers I've been used to, and I wonder if it's different for contests than it is for production companies and management companies. Because I think when I worked for Untitled, the numbers were pretty much like it was like 90, 95% pass.
Mhm.
Um, And I like to think of it as like pass is like kind of the way I explain to people is like when you're passing a turn on something. When you're playing a game, you say pass when you don't want to play your turn. I feel like pass is like you're just passing on the script. Like, nope, this is not. We do not want to get this made, or it costs too much. There's reasons for it, many reasons why. Sometimes like the budget is just a crazy amount, um, and it's too expensive to be made. Sometimes there's no antagonist, and it's like where's the conflict? Sometimes there's just no one you don't love the protagonist. There's many reasons why scripts get passed, but I feel like it's like for when I worked for Magic Companies, production company, it was like 95% of scripts are passed. Maybe 3% are consider, which means like there is something good to this. It's not, I don't love it yet, but I like it a lot. And then 2% is recommend. And when I was at Untitled, I think I recommended maybe 2 or 3 scripts the entire time I'm there. And recommend what you said pretty much is like, is once you recommend something, like it's you on the line representing that script. Like if I tell my boss, hey, I recommend it, my boss better be like, okay, like this better be good. If she doesn't like it, she's not going to trust me anymore. In terms when I say I recommend something, she just be like, oh, um, I'm not going to take that person's word if they recommend. And it's kind of same. It's similar to like when you ask about how a movie was, like when you're asking your friends, how was this movie? If they tell you it was really good and you trust them, it makes you want to go see that. But if they say it was really good and you've heard them say like every movie's good, then you're like, I don't know about your opinion.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that's like something that it's good for writers to keep that in mind when they're submitting scripts is that it's not just if your script isn't advancing or if it's not getting accepted, it's not really necessarily personal to you. It's more of the like behind that pass is a reader who basically is like looking out for their own job. Because I know there's
yeah.
contests I've read for where it's like only 10% of the scripts you read can advance to the next round. And if you go anywhere above 10% of that, then your job could be on the line. So it's like,
Mhm.
so I remember there'd be times where I'm like at 10% already and I'm like reading a script. I'm like, I'm going to find whatever I can find about this script. So it doesn't, because I don't want to. So, and then that isn't to say I would just like pass a script because my job requires for it, but it's more me saying that it's almost like you're sticking your neck out for these people by saying that they're
Yes.
like their script is so good that you're willing to put your job on the line to see their script advance in a
Mhm.
matter of speaking. I know it sounds very dramatic, but that's the most extreme example.
Yeah, yeah, but it's true. Like if I recommend something, it better be fantastic. Because I want my boss to think it's fantastic, and then I want her boss to bring the writer in and um, talk to them because they deserve, their script is so good that it deserves to be recommended and seen. But yeah, most scripts are pass. But if you get coverage from scriptreads.com, we could show you how to how to go from a pass to consider to recommend. All right. All right, we'll go to the next one now, you guys. All right, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but what is script coverage used for?
Yeah, I think the two biggest things are, um, well, I guess there's three. The first is contests, which is you're
Mhm.
basically just looking to is it going to the next round? Is it not? And that's kind of like there's usually not a whole lot of notes involved. I mean, there's some notes if whatever the writer is paying for with this contest like involves some notes in the process, but the end game isn't necessarily to enhance the writing. It's just to gauge if it's advancing or not. The second is what I do the most is just coverage for the writer, where the writer's saying it to you for the main purpose of just
Mhm.
how can I improve this? What's working? What's not working? And you send them back the results, and they use those notes to write a new draft of the script. And the third one is, I guess, kind of like the contest, but you're reading for a specific company that's wanting to know if they want to purchase this script or produce the script or make the script, whatever you want to call it. Um, I think that's a lot more. Um, I think the difference between that and contests is contests are looking for the most unique. For most contests, are looking for the most unique story and the most unique voice that stands out from a crowd. But if you're reading for a company, they might not necessarily be looking for the most unique voice. They might just be looking for something that they specifically want to market for their brand. So, say like
Mhm.
say you write a script that has like it's well written, but it's like a generic kind of action movie where there's like a car chase and there's a love interest and there's a shootout at the end of the movie. That might not necessarily be breaking any molds, and it might not be winning a contest because it is a script that we've seen a lot. But there might be a company where they are looking for a movie that has a car chase, a shootout, and a love interest. And if you're writing that script well, if the script is well written, then it might not win a contest, but it might be a script that a company um, would sign off on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally is. Yeah, and I think going off that too, like a lot of companies look for like low budget
Hmm.
scripts to make because they know, okay, we'll make our own budget back from this. So I know a lot of companies that we're looking out for one location scripts, or if sometimes the actors like want a specific script for them. So you have like a female driven protagonist. I've sold scripts before where it's like an actress was looking for something she could act in. So it's like they're only looking for specifically like these type of scripts. And coverage will tell that like, don't submit if you're writing a kids TV show, do not submit it to Blumhouse because Blumhouse is only going to make horror. Blumhouse is only going to do coverage. They get a recommend coverage of Blumhouse if you're doing horror or something horror adjacent.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think we've talked about what coverage is used for um, pretty much. So yeah, let's go to the next one. What are you looking for in coverage? So when we cover scripts, what are we actually looking for? When you get a script, what would make you recommend it or consider it?
Honestly, just I there's a couple things. I think one is a main character who I really like and empathize with.
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of cases where I'll read a script that might not necessarily be perfect, or it might have some potential flaws there that you could point out, but the character is so likable and so interesting that it saves itself from a lot of those things. And that isn't to say that that you can just like slack off on everything in the script, but I will say there have been times where a main character kind of makes all the difference or makes it stand out from other scripts like it. So I think a main character is so important that way. I think the second thing I look for in scripts is just entertain me and don't be boring. Um, I know that
Yeah.
sounds like such a simple rule, but there are so many scripts where it's like they clearly had like a good idea that you put in the log line and that you put in act one and it's interesting, but then the farther you go into the script, the more you realize that they clearly just had like this one good idea, and then the rest of the script just falls into just cliches or just kind of drags its feet, and it's clear they don't really know where they're going. So I think what I look for in a script is just every scene should feel like it's important, and every scene should feel like it's compelling. There should never be a script where you go to a scene and you're like, all right, the scene doesn't need to be here, or just I don't care because I don't like the main character. Any number of reasons, but I think that note kind of goes in tandem with what I said about characters. If I don't like the main character, or if I don't really care, then there's so many times when I'm reading the script then where I'm like, why am I reading this? I don't care about the main character or what they're
Yeah.
trying to do. So you, I want the script to convince me why I should be reading this, and to convince me why this story is important and why I should care about this character achieving
Mhm.
whatever it is that they set out to do.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely have a character that we want to root for, a protagonist that the reader cares about because you want the audience to care about it as well. So visually, when the people are watching this movie, the audience is going to want to care about this character. Do the same thing to your reader when they're reading the script. Um, I think also like have a good story. That's the biggest thing. Is like have a story.
Mhm.
Um, if things are just happening, and we don't care, then we're not going to care. But I should look out for a clear act one, a clear act two, a clear act three. Because I think a great script, especially for script coverage, is a great script is when you get it and you can't stop reading. Like when you are hooked, which is very seldom. Usually, when I did coverage for Untitled, I remember I would just take bathroom breaks because I was sick of reading and I didn't have to go to the bathroom, but I was like on page 30 and I was like, I'll have to go to the bathroom to give my mind a break, or walk outside. But a great script though is like you can't put it down. You start on page one and you read the whole thing, and like an hour and a half went by, and like you haven't sipped your coffee, you haven't thought about going to the bathroom. The story was so good, and the script was so good. And those are the scripts that get recommends. Um, so you definitely want a good story, and yeah, like you said, you want to have great characters. I always look out for a strong protagonist, but also if I feel the story's weak, it's usually because there's no antagonist, or there's like the antagonist is like uh something we don't care about. um this is like just I don't know an example. I know this movie got made, but like the last Mission Impossible movie, the antagonist was AI, and I did not care. I did not care. I wanted an antagonist who was a person. I think all the best Mission Impossible villains were actual people. Like what's that one guy? Oh God, he passed away a few like 5 years ago. Very famous actor, and he was a really strong antagonist for Mission Impossible.
Well,
He was also in the Hunger
uh,
Games, the last one. That's when he passed
you
away.
talking about Philip Seymour Hoffman?
Yes, Philip Seymour Hoffman. Yeah, like that was a great antagonist for Mission
Yeah,
Impossible. But the last one I was like, AI, who cares? I
yeah.
don't care.
Well, I
Um,
think it's funny you say AI because I think that's another thing going off what you're saying about villains is that it's so
mhm,
important for an antagonist to feel like a human and not just like the antithesis of everything that the hero is. I mean, obviously they're supposed to be kind of uh,
mhm,
clashing with the hero about what they should be the opposite of the hero in a lot of ways, but also you can't just if you just make a character who is just like a caricature of like everything that the hero isn't, then the villain doesn't feel like a real person. It just feels like an imaginary thing that's like going against the hero. I think it's so
mhm,
important to treat your villains like they're humans as well, because I'll so often read scripts where um, the villain is like based off of like a type of person you would like hate in real life, but it's like so obviously like you could tell that the writer wrote the character in a way that they just like hate that character. They hate that
mhm,
character, so they kind of write them as like these like stupid like archetypes of like whatever that person is. But I think the better scripts are the ones that treat those villains like as if they're real people and like they have like real goals. I mean, we don't agree with their goals, but we do see what their motivation is.
yeah.
Whereas I think like in a lot of poor scripts, the villain's goal is whatever the hero doesn't want to happen. And it just feels like they were made out of like a test tube to just fight against the hero and just not like a real person. Which is funny when you say Mission Impossible. I think that's why I there's a lot of reasons I didn't like the last Mission Impossible, but I think the
Yeah,
big
me neither.
one of the big reasons what you're touching on is like the villain isn't a human at all.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's just AI and not even an AI with a goal necessarily. It's just kind of like
yeah,
um it's just kind of whatever Tom Cruise doesn't want to happen. That's what the AI wants to do. And yeah, I don't. That's
yeah,
all I have to say about that movie.
yeah, yeah. Just disappointed by that last one. Yeah. So sorry, Mission Impossible. But I'll also say we look out for good dialogue. I know especially when I have script coverage and it's a comedy and I'm laughing my butt off, that's great dialogue. If like I get a comedy and the jokes are jokes I've seen 1,000 times and I'm not laughing. But I think avoid on the nose dialogue, have good dialogue that seems fresh and new and it seems like the characters jump off the page. That's what we look out for. And I would also say too, if you're a production company and you're getting scripts, if you're doing script coverage for a production company, you want to make sure the scripts are marketable towards that production company. Again, so if I'm working at Blumhouse, you want to make sure the script has somewhat of a horror element to it. If you're sending it to companies that do rom-coms, make sure there's some rom-com stuff. Don't send an action to a rom-com company. Make sure the marketability of the production company um, is intact
Mhm.
when you're doing script coverage for them. Let's talk about the biggest mistakes we've seen. We've both done a ton of coverage. What are common mistakes we've seen again and again when doing script coverage?
Well, I think you just touched on one that I see a lot, and it bothers me more than a lot of mistakes. Is just dialogue,
Mhm.
dialogue that's either like on the nose or it's it's just very artificial sounding. A lot of dialogue where people say each other's names when they're talking is just so it's so hard to
Yeah.
believe because no one says I'm not sitting here saying, "Jordan, what are your
Yeah.
tendencies, Jordan? Why don't you tell me about this, Jordan? What do you think, Jordan?" It's just like we know each other's names and
Yep.
which it sounds like a small note, but when you read a lot of scripts and it's like what I was saying earlier, it's like you read it enough times and as soon as you are reading the script and you see those mistakes, you're like you just feel physically sick because you're so sick of seeing those same mistakes over and over again.
Mhm.
And I think dialogue is one of the more noticeable mistake bad dialogue stands out to me anyway. It stands out more as a mistake than a lot of other mistakes, because when you're reading a lot of scripts, like if there's action lines or description lines that aren't necessarily too great, that can kind of be fixed in when the movie's being shot or like in post or anything like that. But dialogue is so final. I mean, that's just the dialogue's going to be kind of the same on the script and the same in the movie in the same way it's edited, unless the actor has something to change about it. But it's just people saying lines. And I think when you do, I know Jordan and we both have had experience with this, but when you're having a table read of the script, the dialogue is bad, it is so obvious so quickly that the dialogue is
Yeah.
bad. So I would say, like, if you can fix one thing about your script, I would look at your dialogue first, because that's the most noticeable before anything else, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And speaking of table reads, I think something we'll also have on scriptreads.com is a table read option. Because I think that's something, table reads are so beneficial. And they're so much fun. Um,
I think that was the first organic plug we had for script reads that wasn't just us.
was it?
I'm proud of us.
Well, I don't know if it was super organic, because as soon as you said table reads, I've like put in my mind I'm going to plant that. So it was like semi-organic.
I think table
Yeah,
reads is super valuable,
yeah.
especially for dialogue. Because I think because a lot of writers aren't actors, and I think if you're not an actor, then you might not necessarily be able to pick up on bad dialogue as much as an actor might, because actors read
Mhm.
scripts all the time, and um, they're always doing auditions, and there's so many times when they're just reading the dialogue either out loud or in their head. And as a writer, for me, it took me a long time to realize that my dialogue was garbage, because I don't know how to deliver lines. So I think that's a really important thing for new and up and coming writers to really check, is their dialogue.
Yeah, yeah, and make sure it's not on the nose. I think that's a big mistake I see from early or from new screenwriters, is like dialogue is just on kind of the same way you said. Like sometimes you'll hear a name over and over again, because like brothers don't talk like that, sisters don't say the name of each other a lot. Um,
Mhm.
so it's like make sure whatever the relationships are, the characters make sure they're talking like their relationships. Um,
Also, exposition and
yes, yeah.
repetitive information. Um, just don't do those. I mean, like, you can do,
Hmm.
that's another, going back to Mission Impossible. I mean, half that movie was exposition, and it was exhausting. So if you're trying to be a writer, I would look at that last Mission Impossible movie as an example of just exposition that just kind of goes off the rails. And
Yep.
I don't want, like, I like a lot of the Mission Impossible movies, so I don't want it to seem like I'm just like dumping on the franchise. But yeah, just exposition. There's no conflict in exposition. I mean, you can maybe try and find a way to get it in there, but exposition, the goal of it is just to get information out to the audience, which is not compelling, because it's not a conversation. There's no stakes involved. It's just explaining something to the audience, which just sounds like you're watching an instruction manual at that point.
Mhm.
And repetitive exposition is even worse, because you're hearing the same information on more than one occasion, which is just like, why are we hearing this again? Why do we need to repeat something that we already know? And I think, even not even necessarily just repetitive dialogue, but I'd be very careful with dialogue that is saying things to the audience that we already assumed, or things that we've already seen, even if we haven't necessarily heard a character say something. We as the audience might already be able to figure out something that then a character will say, and then we're going, okay, yeah, that goes without saying, that's obvious, and we don't need someone to say it. So I think
Yeah.
that's not don't just like don't look at dialogue, but also look at just like the subtext of what the script is saying, and the action and the description lines, to make sure that dialogue isn't repeating anything that we've already seen, um, in general. And I would just say, don't the less dialogue you can write, the better. I would only use dialogue when is absolutely necessary to get a point across. Speaking specifically towards exposition, because I don't want to make it sound like exposition is just like a never write exposition ever. Sometimes it's necessary, but the less you can use, the better.
Yeah. And I think this goes along with show, don't tell. That's
Hmm.
another mistake I see all the time is things are being told when they should be shown. And I think there's great ways of doing show don't tell and having exposition at the same time. And the one example I think all the time is Iron Man. Iron Man did a really good job of that, where opening scene they blew things up. And then they show the exposition of Tony Stark and his history of like being a kid and his father dying, but they do it through show don't tell with like magazine covers of Rolling Stone, and showing like all these things he did as a kid, but like doing it through images. Um, so the bad scripts just kind of have just characters talking about the past, and nothing. There's no conflict in the present moment. Um,
Yeah, anytime you're writing exposition, just ask yourself, is there something else going on in this scene other than the information being conveyed? Is there some kind of conflict in the scene? Is there like, are we learning something about a character by what they're saying with this exposition? Are we getting visuals? If a scene with exposition is also achieving something like that, then
mhm.
for me anyway, if I was reading that script, I would be able to give that exposition a little bit more of a pass because it's doing more things than just conveying that information.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. There's a few more mistakes I'd point out, but we could go on and on. But I do have a list of 10 biggest mistakes I put in a lot of my courses. I show this, but I think the last one I'll touch upon that I kind of want to talk about, that I see from really new writers all the time, is they fade in more than once and they fade out more than once. There should be only one fade in and only one fade out. Do not put any in the middle because
Hmm.
it's formatted wrong.
Hmm.
Um, so I would make sure the script is formatted correctly. You don't have to have all these cut tos. You don't have to have all these fade ins and fade outs. Um,
Hmm.
and we can definitely point that out, at
Hmm.
scriptreads.com. Um, so um, we'll go to the next one. All right, so next question. If whatever you can talk about in general, because we can't really talk about scripts we have read, we can't talk of the names or the writers. But in general, if you can, did you have any favorite scripts, that you can talk about in a vague way without, revealing of what was it about or anything? And did it teach you anything or inspire you somehow?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of ones that I can talk about because yeah, there's been plenty of scripts for contests that have inspired me, but I can't really talk about any of them. But I
I know
know
it's hard. It's a hard
when
question to
I first
answer.
started out, though, when I was reading at like places like some of the studios, like Paramount and things like that, I read the Arrival script, and I know I
Oh,
can say that because it was already like in production, and there was like a test script that they wanted to like see what my coverage was like, but I remember reading that one and thinking like, man, I hope because I didn't realize it was being made at the time. I thought this was just like a random script that came across my desk, and
mm,
I was like, this is like, are all the scripts this good? Because this was like I was expecting to read some like terrible scripts, and like literally the first script I ever read for coverage was Arrival. And yeah, I think it's been so long, but I remember reading that and just thinking how efficiently it conveyed the story and how easy it was to just visualize it as a movie. Because I remember then seeing the movie and seeing the trailers and thinking like it really just seemed like they copy and pasted what my brain pictured when I was reading that script. And I think it also did a great job of keeping my attention from start to finish. And every scene just felt like there was something new to keep me engaged, some new turn or some new character development. It's just like every scene had something to keep me invested in the story. So I think that was a good example of just teaching me to always write under the assumption that you're trying to sell this to someone. You're trying to every
mm.
moment should feel important, and I think that script did a really good job of conveying that.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I think for me, because I'm mostly a comedy guy, you know that. And I've dabbled in a couple other genres, but I think there's some like when I worked for Untitled and like especially my early 20s, there were some scripts that were not in the genre that I worked in. There were different genres like thriller, for example, and there's a couple thrillers I was like, wow, this is how you write a thriller. Or like, wow, this is how you write. Or there's like some scripts that I've had that just surprised me. I gave a recommend to, because they showcase how to write that genre and they just taught me, okay, this is how you write in that genre. This is how you surprise people. And something you kind of talked about that reminded me, I remember when I was working in Beverly Hills, the one script that was going around at the time was for the Untitled Mindy Kaling project, which would become the Mindy Project.
Mm.
And I like how the script actually said Untitled Mindy Kaling Project, and then he just took out Untitled. They took
And you
out
just that name.
took out her last name and still kept. Um, I remember that when it came out like a year later after I saw the script, I was like, oh, they kept project in the title. I've never seen that before. Um, so I remember reading that though, and I remember laughing a lot when I read that. And the watching the pilot, I think a year later, it was cool to see go from like reading it to seeing it on screen. So yeah, there's definitely some ones I've given a recommend to or read for fun that have definitely inspired me or taught me some stuff. But yeah, let's go with some fun questions now. So for anyone who's interested, or, for anyone who wants to buy script coverage for us at where is that website again called? What's it called?
I think it's something with script in the name. It's a
Yeah.
really easy name to look up for anyone who wants to look it up. But we're breaking our own rule of repetitive information and exposition. We keep repeating the same thing.
Yeah.
Don't do what we're doing, guys.
Yeah. But do get your script coverage at scriptreads.com. But yeah, if people go to scriptreads.com and they get coverage from us, I just think it's a fun question to ask. What are your favorite movies of all time?
I think it's a three-way tie between. All right, so the first one, I'll start with like the mainstream ones, and then I'll go like weird to number three. But the first one's The Dark Knight. I just remember
Ooh,
like seeing that for the first time and thinking like, oh, that's the movie that convinced me that I wanted to work in film and screenplays.
yeah.
For all the reasons that we've been talking about. I mean, it just keeps your attention the whole time. The characters are great. That there's so much at stake. Um, it just is like constantly ramping itself up from beginning to end. And I think what also it does well, and I think I didn't mention this earlier, but I was thinking about it, is it just really has a good ending and it sticks to the landing, which I think is really important for a story to have, just to
Mhm.
really feel like the ending is inevitable and to make it really feel like this script is ramping up towards a conclusion, because I think a lot of screenplays will just um, kind of just pander off by the end of the script, and then it just kind of ends on like on kind of a low note or a weak note. But I think if you can have a strong ending, that's to me that's half the battle. Because giving yourself a strong ending also gives yourself something to work towards, which I think if you have that strong ending starting out, that'll really like make especially the second half of your second act really strong, because I think audiences can pick up on a strong ending in sight. I think they can pick up on it just from subtext in throughout the movie. And that's why I fell a lot with The Dark Knight. So that was a big one. The Dark Knight. I remember Return of the King was a movie I really, really liked a lot, and I think that still kind of holds my um, sharing my number one spot for a lot of the reasons I gave with The Dark Knight. But that was also good just in the way that it juggles a lot of characters. Yeah, the stakes are constantly high and it always keeps my attention. The third one is definitely kind of the odd one out of this bunch, but it's called you I think you've heard of this, Jordan. I know our friend Ian's heard of it. I think it's his favorite movie too, but it's
Oh
called
boy.
Mad World. I think
Oh
it's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the title. I think we watched it one time, but
Yeah, we watched it
that
in
was
tons.
like I think that's what because I don't think I'm as much of a comedy writer as you are, Jordan, but I remember like meeting you and like kind of
Mhm.
becoming a comedy writer. And I think I owe a lot of that to It's a Mad World, because that was like a for those of you watching this who have never heard of it, it was like a huge comedy movie in the 60s, I
60s.
believe.
Yep.
Like all the biggest names of the time, all the biggest comedic actors of the time were
Yep.
all in this movie. I think I looked it up. I think there's at least like 100 famous funny actors or comedians in this movie. But that was that was just so it's just so funny and so it wrangled so many things. Like there's so many characters and so many subplots, um but it really just kept itself moving at like at a great speed. There's really no main character, but I think it handles it well, because all the characters have the exact same goal. For those of you who have never seen it, it's basically the original Rat Race. I don't know if you guys remember
Yeah.
Rat Race from the 90s, but this was like the original Rat Race. So all these characters are after a lot of money. I think it was like $350,000, which at the time was a lot of money. I think that's the funniest thing that dates that movie. It's like there's like 12 people going after $350,000. I'm like, if they split that, it's like not even remotely worth like the effort that they're. There's like car chases and like car crashes like years before airbags were invented. So it's just
Yeah.
like the stakes are raised. But I think that's a really fun. It's a really fun script or script and movie. I know we're talking about movies, not specifically just scripts, but
Yeah.
um, I think that also has what we haven't really touched on a lot is themes. The theme of that movie being like money and greed just kind of like leads to your downfall. I mean, it's like a funny, lighthearted version of that, but it
Yeah.
essentially boils down to that. And I think that's a having a strong theme. I think it can be a make or break for a script, and I've often found myself if I've run out of steam when I'm writing some of my own scripts and I don't know why. The two biggest reasons for why I might kind of run out of steam with the script is either the main character I don't like or it's not compelling, or there's no themes to the movie. Because there's been times where I'm like halfway through a script and I'm like, why don't I like? What's the point of this? Like, I don't know, like what, like if I'm not saying anything about this script or this story, then I kind of like lose interest after a while. And I think audiences kind of they might not realize it, but I think when audiences don't connect to something, it might be for that reason. Um, at least subconsciously, that might be a reason. So I think that's why it's a Mad World stuck with me for a long time. I think that what I initially fell in love with it was because of the comedy, but I think the reason it's lasted this long in my brain and why it's one of my favorite movies is because of those themes that kind of like resonate with you for a long time. But yeah, it's a Mad World. Check it out. Fantastic, fantastic movie.
Yeah. It's the only comedy that is like it's at least it's like 2.5 hours, maybe 3.5 hours long.
Yeah, I think like
Uh,
there's some cuts of it that are 3 hours. So yeah,
yeah.
it's a really kind of a monolith of its time.
And it does a great job. Like you're sustained. I think there's an intermission even like halfway through it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um, but it keeps you sustained and it like keeps you excited and you want to see who gets the money.
Hmm.
And it's entertaining throughout the whole thing.
And every
Uh,
character, I mean, there's a lot of characters, but they all have goals. They all have
mhm.
unique personalities. Like every character is fun, and there's a lot of characters.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. All right, I'll say my favorite movies really quick. They're all pretty much comedies. So I was like writing them down as you were answering. Stranger Than Fiction is my favorite movie of all time. You ever seen that with Will
Yeah.
Ferrell?
Yep.
Maggie Gyllenhaal. That's my favorite movie of all time. I don't even like Will Ferrell movies really at all. But this is like Will Ferrell being much more serious, and he works for the IRS, and it's not, it's not like Anchorman or a lot of Will Ferrell movies. It's completely different, more of a drama than a comedy, but there's some funny parts to it too. It's my favorite movie of all time. But also Dark Knight, love that.
Mm,
That's probably my favorite screening of any movie. I remember going to it at midnight when the night it opened up. Full house and just like walking away at 2:30 in the morning going, wow, that's a movie.
mhm.
Um, yeah, Jojo Rabbit's probably up there too. I love Jojo Rabbit. Um, Baby Mama, Dodgeball, Happy Gilmore. Um, oh, I wrote a couple other ones too. Tommy Boy, love Tommy Boy. Uh, and if we're gonna go classic, 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 I'm gonna go with The Gold Rush by Charlie Chaplin. Uh,
Mm,
that's
mhm,
one of my favorite movies of all time. And there's just stuff in there. I'm like, how did he do that? Um,
mhm.
so yeah, and I'm sure there's many, many more, but those are probably all my top 10.
I did
Um,
not think the Dark Knight would be the common connector. I could have sworn one of our like mutually loved movies would have been a comedy, but the Dark Knight, how about that?
yeah, yeah, I
Well, the
love.
Joker's in it. Joker's funny. That's a comedy.
Yeah, but it's just like such great action. And it's one of those movies that I don't tend to watch movies over and over again, but it is one of those movies that I will watch it over and over again. Like if anyone
Mhm.
wants to watch it, I'll watch it. Um,
And that movie
so
does have like funny comedic relief moments. I think that's an important lesson that I get out of that movie is like even because you think of The Dark Knight and you think it's just like such a serious movie. And then
Hmm.
you watch it again. There's entire scenes that are there to be comedic relief, and I think that's an important thing for writers to remember that like even the most serious scripts need some moments of levity to them, and I think that's even how Jordan, you discovered that I was like a comedy writer in the first place because I would bring in like these heavy, serious scripts because I was just like Mr. Dark Knight all the time, and then I would write a script and bring in pages, and then there'd be like one the comedic relief scene, and that was like easily everyone's favorite scene in that chunk of pages. And I remember that's how like I learned
Yeah.
I really enjoyed writing comedy, but anyway, all that is to say is I think even if you don't think you're a comedy writer and you just want to write all drama all the time, I would still try to do a couple of lighthearted comedy scenes because I think it's important for any movie to have something like that.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean any movie. Like, go like think of any serious movie you've seen and like watch the movie again, and like there's always going to be at least one moment where there's a little bit of a chuckle or just something to keep, because if it was just like serious from start to finish, it'd be miserable. No one can
Yeah.
just sit there for 2.5 hours and be sad the entire time. It's unless it's like a Lars von Trier movie, but that's a whole different thing.
Yeah. I think that's why Mission Impossible, the last one didn't work because there's nothing funny, you know. I mean,
The they're funny things, but they weren't supposed to be funny.
yeah. I mean, but like, who's the comic Simon Pegg, right? That's the comedic actor in that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
who's in. Like, he had no jokes in the last one. So,
Hmm.
um, I think the two running gags in this episode are going to be how much we're going to promote scriptreads.com, and the
How much
second,
we're not going to be promoting Mission Impossible. You should
yeah,
stop watching Mission Impossible and go to scriptreads.com. That's our.
yes, yeah, uh, yeah. All right, all right. Two more questions. Do you have a favorite script of yours that you hope to see made one day? One that you think would get good coverage if you submit it for coverage at scriptreads.com.
For me, it's there's one that has gotten good coverage in the past, back before I was reading for all these contests and just submitting scripts. But this one always advanced kind of far, but it was called Good Times at the Old Town Funk. And Jordan, you might
Oh
you might
yeah,
have heard this, but that was
yeah.
it's essentially a story about Macaulay Culkin, who is struggling with acting and struggling to find work. So he takes up work at a old west fair in a small town, and then he finds out that all of the theater actors who are running that Western fair, they're all flesh stealing zombies who murder actors and steal their skin to basically disguise themselves in this town. So they're basically these zombies hiding in plain sight. And by the time Macaulay Culkin finds that out, it's too late and he's already working there. So he basically has to act his way out of the situation and convince these zombies that he's one of them. So it's basically Macaulay Culkin having to be a good actor in a whole town full of zombies who are acting and moonlighting as cowboys and old western characters. So I don't know what drugs I was on when I wrote that. I wasn't on any drugs when I wrote that, but it was one of those things where I was reading a lot of scripts at the time for contests, and I just like they're all just very predictable, and I just felt like I was reading the same five scripts over and over again. And I was like, I want to write something that was just like so out of left field that like no
Mhm.
one's ever seen this before. So I was like, all right, I just had some ideas and I threw them together, and I was like, okay, this is like I've never heard of a movie like this, and I probably never will. So this is the one. And I kind of wrote it as a joke, but then I submitted it to some contests, and my guess is the readers for this contest kind of felt the same way I did. So when they saw the script, they're like, okay, this is ridiculous. So I get a lot of joy out of showing that script to people and then hearing their inevitable reactions afterwards of just like, what is wrong with you? Like, what were you thinking when you wrote this? And I think that's a really fun experience to have a script like that no one has ever seen anything like it before. So that's one I would love to see made someday.
Yeah, I think it was the table read too when you did the first act.
Hmm.
So I remember like I remember hearing a bunch of laughs from it.
And I
Uh,
wrote it when like Macaulay Culkin, because now Macaulay Culkin is like really getting back into acting. He's in like shows and all kinds of things. But I
mm,
think at the time he wasn't as much in the spotlight as he is now. So the more he's becoming more successful with acting again, the more I'm like, oh, this is like now I really need to see to get him the script at some point because yeah, sooner or later he's going to be too successful for this joke to even play off because no one will believe that he's taking up work at an old West fair.
Yeah. Yeah. He's gonna have his own renaissance soon. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, maybe see if he has a production company.
Yeah.
And try to reach out to them. Yeah, yeah. I would say one of my favorite scripts that's also gotten good coverage is Grandma Knows Best. Um, I've gotten it's a yeah, you've read it before, but yeah, about a badass grandma who gets out of prison after 20 years, goes back home, meets her three grandchildren who all thought she was dead, um, and then becomes part of their life, and it's a whole family sitcom. And I've had some success with it, and I've got it. I applied to another contest with it recently for Warner Brothers. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, would love to see that TV show get made.
And it has a great, I mean, like grandma as a character, like I could see a lot of
Yeah.
actors looking for like a good script to star in. That would be a great kind of star vehicle for them.
Mhm.
I think that's a really good example of a script that just has such a fun, larger than life character that people would love to see. And I think that's a good example that writers can kind of like take a note from. Of I found a lot of like something that I learned over time is that I would make like one specific kind of person the main character, and they're always boring. But then like the main supporting character was always way more interesting. So at some point, I just kind of like flipped them, and I was like, okay, now like every time I think of like the funny supporting character, I should just make them the main character because they're like the funniest, they're the most entertaining. I feel like that I remember reading that script a while ago and thinking like grandma, like in a worse version of this, grandma would have been like the quirky side character, not the main character. But you made her since she's the most interesting, she's the most fun to watch, so make her the main
Yeah.
character. And I remember that's why I like that script so much.
Yeah. Yeah. She's the most badass, and she says the most. Um, she says the things that you're not really supposed to say sometimes.
Mhm. Yeah.
um, but she gets away with it because she's an old person
Mhm.
that we all love. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, yeah, awesome. All right, last question. Is there any other advice you'd like to give on scripts before writers send them for coverage? Any other advice you'd give before they submit it to scriptreads.com? Um,
Yeah, I guess like I guess we've kind of circled around this a lot already, but I guess the biggest thing really is just anytime you're writing any script, whether you're going to submit it to a contest or a script coverage service or not, always write it under the assumption that whoever you're giving it to, whoever's going to read this script, probably doesn't want to read it. And I know that sounds like a very pessimistic thing to say, and I'm like, and that isn't to say everyone reading your script doesn't want to read it, but I think that's a good mindset to put your head in because as soon as you kind of start thinking that way when you're writing, all of a sudden you're not just writing for the sake of writing, but you're writing to prove someone wrong about your script. You're basically
yeah,
writing to prove to people why they should be reading your script. And I think the more you kind of feel like you're writing against something like that, the more it inspires, at least the more it inspires me to write it in a way that captivates an audience, and it's like you're not just telling a story, you're selling a story to somebody. um yeah, so just every something I'll do with a lot of my scripts before I send it to someone is I'll scroll through it a lot of different times and then just stop at a random page wherever that is in the script, and if there's not something in that page that I specifically really like that makes me go, oh, I love this page, or I love the scene because this is the scene where so and so does this and I really like that a lot. if if there's any point when I'm doing that and there's not a scene that makes me feel that way, then I'll double check to make sure, see why that scene isn't working for me, and then I'll kind of expand from there to see like is that a problem with like the whole actor, is that a problem with the whole script. I think it's also a good idea to look at your script in a format that's not on the format of where you're writing it. What I mean by this is when you're done with the script, read it over again, but don't read it on Final Draft, or don't read it on the software that you use to write it. I would either like print out a hard copy of it,
yeah,
or like read it on your phone, read it on something that isn't your computer, because for me that helps me to psychologically, that makes me feel like I'm reading something that isn't mine, even though it clearly is. It's just something to kind of get your brain looking at the script in a different way. Um, and I think once you kind of like trick your brain that way, it helps you to be a little more honest with your script. Because there's been times where I've like looked at like a hard copy of my script, read through it, and there'll be new things that stuck out to me. Or it was like, oh, that's like, now that I'm reading it like this, it just doesn't feel like this line doesn't work, or this scene just doesn't quite uh, work in a way I want it to. So I think that's a good way of just like getting outside of your own head to read your own script. I think it's also a good idea to take a couple of days or a couple of weeks off from your script and um, come at it when you're not like this far away from the script, and you can look at it from you've had a little bit of time just to think about other things, so you're not just thinking about that script all day. So you're kind of coming at it with a little more of a clear mind.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'll jump on a couple things you said. I think totally agree with print out the script. I think once you have it done on your computer, print it out. Because I think especially when you print it out and you feel it, like you feel more accomplished as a screenwriter. Like, yeah, I did this 100 pages or whatever, how long it is. And you also catch way more mistakes printing it out than I think. Totally agree. Like you catch way more on paper than you will on a computer screen. So I totally recommend when you're done with the script, print it out, go somewhere, either a coffee shop, get some coffee, or go get a beer somewhere and just read the whole script front to back with a pen and the paper and write down notes as you're reading the script. I think you can catch a lot on the paper, way more than you can on the computer screen. And there's less distractions too, because you're not checking your email, you're not going on this website. Like just pen and paper, it helps so much. And you have a lot if you have a way more clearer head. And the other thing I think I want to say is if you're submitting to scriptreads.com, you can submit as much as you want. But if you're submitting to production companies or producers, you only get one shot. And I think this is very important to know, like before you send it to producers or directors or anyone who can buy the script and can make it, you want to make sure plenty of people have read it before, do some table reads, make it the best it could possibly be, because you only get one shot once you send it to the producer. You can't send it to a producer and then 2 weeks later be like, hey, here's an updated version, and then do it again. Here, hey, like, don't do that. You get one shot, and you can change the script once they give you notes and say they like it and they want to change a few things around and they have ideas or notes and they want to discuss it with you. That's fine. Then you can update the script after they give you feedback. But once you're sending it to someone who can actually buy it, you only get one shot. You can only send that PDF of that script one time. So make sure it's ready. Make sure it's a recommend.
Double check your title page. Make sure that you don't have one title page and then a second title page that's blank, and then the script. I know Jordan, you and I both use Writer Duet sometimes, but sometimes a lot of people will, just for whatever reason, there's just like the title page added a second title page. And when you're reading scripts for a contest and you're scrolling through the script and it's a title page, then a blank page, and then the script, it is not a good. It's like it's got to be the number one mistake that's so quickly noticeable, but also so easy to avoid, that I think if some of these writers knew that was the mistake they made after all of this effort to make this script look and read well on the page, that little mistake, that's the first thing you see before you even get to all that hard work. It's just like, just double check your title page.
Yeah. Double check the whole PDF before you send it out. Make sure, if it's 99 pages, it's all there. I've also seen sometimes where like they just export the title page. So you open a script and it's just title page, and then you're like, where's the rest of the script?
Yep.
Double check that PDF before you send it to people who can make the movie, or the TV show, or whatever it is. So yeah, and then I have other, like a bunch of other mistakes that I've seen in other scripts that people can check out if they take my courses. But yeah, anyone who is interested in script coverage, check out scriptreads.com. David and I are on there. It's always going to be real screenwriters who have produced movies who provide coverage. So check that out. How many more times can I say?
You should repeat it one more time. I don't think we've said it enough times.
All right. I'll spell it too, just in case. SCRIPTREADS.com. But yeah, scriptreads.com. And that is the end of the. Oh, David, do you have a this is totally I totally forgot to plan this, but do you have a joke you want to end with?
Oh,
I,
I don't have any jokes.
all right, well, text me one
I'm
if you
not,
want.
you're a much better comedy writer than I am. I don't have like a Rolodex of funny things to say or to write about, but
All right, I'll add a joke of the podcast at the end of this afterwards. Um, but yeah, awesome. All right, well, yeah, thank you everyone for listening and watching. And scriptreads.com is where you can find us.
thanks, guys.
Um,
I hope this was helpful.
oh
I
yeah,
don't want like I think when like any writers listening to this to not feel discouraged about their writing. I think that's um, it can be disheartening to get notes from covered services or contests that aren't helpful or aren't quite what you're looking for. And I've been in that I've been in that situation before, and I know it's easier when once I moved to Los Angeles and I found people who I could rely on their notes. It's something that I take for granted a lot. But I grew up in Pennsylvania, and there was just like there's not a lot of screenwriters where I lived and where I went to school. Um, so I think it's really valuable to get some affirmation from people who like screenplays as much as you do. Um, so yeah, I would like scriptreads.com. It's great, but like if not us, find reliable people out there to read your scripts and to give you helpful notes because that's so important.
yeah,
And they don't even have to be screenwriters; they can be actors. I found a lot of actors give me great notes about my script. They can be directors, they can be producers. I open up your minds to what others people might have to suggest about your script, and don't get too defensive when people say that they don't like your script or if they have a lot of notes that make it seem like they don't like your script. Because I think once you find really good people to read your scripts, it's clear that they want to help you improve your script, not to break you down as a person. So I think that's a good it's good to get out of the headspace of feeling like you need to defend your script to people. Yeah, find people who help you and want to build you up, not break you down. That's all I'll say about that. And
yeah,
script.
no, yeah. At scriptreads.com, I think we are encouraging. You definitely want to find people who are encouraging and I love people who point out, what can be made better, but also um, are grateful and and see how much work you've already put into it. Because I think, writing any movies, whether it's your first one or your 40th one or 100th one or whatever, like writing each movie is a lot of work. Um, and it does not feel great. And I've had that too before, where you send it off for coverage by, someone who's probably done nothing, and then they send it back to you, and they're probably jaded about their own lives, so they take it out on you, and it doesn't make you feel good, getting coverage that just points out all these flaws. Where I like the coverage where you get constructive criticism, and we see what actually does work. We want to point out what actually does work on the script, and keep you encouraged and keep you writing more. Because like if you get so discouraged, you should completely stop. And I know for myself, and I'm sure maybe for you too, like my first script was not good, but I'm glad. The first person I showed it to was very encouraging to me, and she pointed out what worked well and what was good about the story, and it kept me going, kept me writing as a screenwriter. So I think I definitely want to be that for other people too, like show them what could be better, but also what they've done that's fantastic, what's worked, what's excellent about their script, and keep them going and keep them motivated to either fix the story till it gets made or keep writing more scripts, or whatever it is they need to do to keep being a screenwriter, because we definitely want to be encouraging and have them feel inspired. So
Mhm. Yeah,
yeah.
I think what works, what people like about your script is just as important as what people don't like about your script. And I hate it when people say like every first draft is like terrible through and through. I don't agree with that at all. I mean, yeah, like
Yeah.
every first draft needs to be improved, but um, I think if you're showing your script to someone and it's a first draft and they have nothing good to say about it, then I would find someone else to to give you notes on a script, because
Mhm.
then they're just nitpicking things in your script, and you want to find someone to give you notes who sees what you're trying to do. And I think that the only way you can know for sure if someone kind of sees your vision for it is by hearing them say what they like about your script. And if it's the same things that you like about the script, then I would hold on to that person and get as many notes from them as you possibly can, because that's someone who wants to um, see your script succeed, not to have an ego trip or to put you down in any way just to make themselves feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't make them feel better usually, you know. I feel like I think helping people helps you as well. So I think we are find someone who's trying to be helpful. And yeah, like you said, make that script successful and help you succeed. So yeah. All right. That's it. How about we go 1 through 3 and we'll just both yell scriptreads.com and then that's how we end it.
Dude,
Sound good?
yeah.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Scriptreads.com.
Scriptreads.com.
Thanks for listening to Screenwriters Talk Screenwriting. Subscribe, rate, and review for more episodes.
Screenwriters Talk Screenwriting is presented by scriptreads.com for coverage by real screenwriters who have produced movies. Book your script coverage at scriptreads.com. And now the joke of the podcast. 2 pickles fell out of a jar onto the floor. What did one say to the other? Deal with it.